All right, welcome to episode 18 of Life is Horror. Today's episode will be about my top 18 favorite horror movies of 2018, which I've already done a year ranking of that year when I first started my channel. I started this channel back in 2018, and I did a top 5 of 2018 because I had only seen about maybe 10 at the most at the end of that year. I was very new to the game, so I didn't watch a whole lot. So yeah, that list, looking back at it, sucks. This is my definitive list for now. I've seen a lot more movies since, so this is a much better list compared to that one. I think I had like Strangers Pray at Night on that list, and God knows what else. But now I've seen like over 80 some movies from 2018. So yeah, this will be the top 18. Plus, I'll shout out other movies that are worth watching because there was a lot of great movies from 2018. And I will not be talking about Searching. Searching, I think, was my number one on that list, if I remember correctly. That was my number one of 2018. I think that movie's a 10 out of 10. I love that film so much. But is it a horror movie? Not really. I think it's more of just like a mystery thriller laptop movie. And the sequel's a little bit more horrific, if you ask me. A little bit more horror elements in there, especially in the third act. I would be more comfortable putting that movie on a horror list, missing than Searching. So because Searching and even Upgrade, I love Upgrade. If that counted as horror, that would easily be my top 3 of the year. But Upgrade, Searching, I don't count them as being really horror movies, so they're not going to make the list. So just want to put that out there ahead of time. So yeah, my list is going to be way different from that list from over 5 years ago now. So yeah, let's get into this. Also, before we jump into that list, I'm gonna discuss a couple of German films that just got recently released in the last few months. Holy shit, or I think it's spelled like holy exclamation point T. I think. Yeah, that's on Shudder, I think, or Screenbox. I think that one's on Screenbox. And Family Dinner is the other German horror film I'll be talking about. So this is a German themed episode. So Family Dinner, that one's on Shudder. So yeah, those are the two films. Family Dinner, holy shit. So, but before I talk about those, I'm also going to go over some horror news. My least favorite segment, but some of you might like it. I don't know. Uh, Leprechaun, yeah, that series. We're getting another one because we're all asking for it. Um, so we're gonna get it, another freaking Leprechaun, and they already hired a writer and a director. I didn't write down their names, but it's in the works. It's coming. Lionsgate is the company, the studio behind it. They're trying to revive the Leprechaun franchise. From what I read, I don't think this is going to be a sequel. I doubt it. To the last movie. The last movie, which I liked, it's pretty gory, silly as fuck, but the last one was a direct sequel, which is the new popular trend, and I doubt this will continue from that. This will probably just be another direct sequel or another reimagining, kind of like the WWE one Origins. Hopefully they don't do that, because everyone hates that one, right? So yeah, another Leprechaun movie. Am I excited for it? No, because Leprechaun's nowhere near one of my favorite franchises. And if you want to hear my thoughts on all those movies, you can check them out here on this channel. I actually reviewed all of the Leprechauns leading up to the release of Leprechaun Returns. So, which I think that's a 2018 film, so that might make this list. Who knows? So yeah, and then the third thing that got announced that I don't want to talk about for very long because I don't like these fucking movies. Scream 7. Yes, it's happening. We're getting another Scream. And we got a new director. Radio Silence directed 5 and 6. This one's going to be directed by Christopher Landon, who did the Happy Death Day films and Freaky. And he worked on the Paranormal Activity franchise. Now, I like Christopher Landon. He also just did the movie recently, We Have a Ghost, which I talked about in a recent episode. I think he's a good filmmaker. I like his movies. But do I think he's the guy who can finally make a good Scream movie? Not really. I don't know. I feel like because of his work, he's going to make it goofy. He makes a lot of funny, goofy horror movies. And that's kind of what I don't like about the Scream franchise is how goofy and like meta they get. It's tired. it's been done to death. Like every movie's the same, and I don't think Christopher Landon is going to be the guy who like changes it up and throws the formula away. Like, no, we're not going to do that. He's just going to tick all the boxes that need to be ticked for the Scream fanboys out there. It's probably just going to be another Scream movie that I won't like, and which is just a shame. I don't know who would make a good Scream movie. Who I would pick. I don't know. I just feel like I don't think it matters who you pick. The studios just will not let anyone fuck with that Scream formula. We gotta have the person, two of them at least, always take off their mask, give a long-winded speech about why they're pissed off, and the movies just always fall apart in the third act. And I doubt Christopher Landon's going to be the guy who, shakes things up and changes it. It's just going to be the same shit again, and everyone's going to live. No one can die. They all got plot armor, no gore, no nudity, no good atmosphere, nothing. It's just gonna be the same fucking movie. This franchise to me is just so overrated. I can't stand it. The more I think about it, the more I dislike it. Like the Scream fanboys are getting worse than the Halloween fanboys, if you ask me. They defend these movies to death, and I'm done talking about it. Fuck it. Before I lose somebody, I'm sure I'm pissing some Ghostface fanboys off. I don't care. That's just how I feel. I think the franchise is overrated. So yeah, that's how I feel about Scream 7. I don't care if it ever comes out. So yeah, now let's talk about some of these movies. Let's get into the one I liked the most. Holy shit! It does say "holy shit!" exclamation point. I thought it was SH exclamation point T. Why did I think that? I don't know. So this movie. Let me read a plot synopsis if it will let me. My fucking phone froze, so let me unfreeze it. There we go. Now it's working. Jesus, technical difficulties. All right, so an architect regains consciousness in a locked portaloo. I guess that's what they call it. A portaloo on a building site where a detonation is being prepared as he desperately tries to find ways of escaping his prison, quotations, before potentially being blown to smithereens. So yeah, that's what this movie's all about. To me, this movie is Saw meets that recent film from last year, Glorious, where the guy's in the bathroom the whole time, but this one's a porta potty, and yeah, he's like upside down when it starts. He's like in a very awkward position, and he's chained to the wall. There's a piece of rebar like stuck in his arm, or is he chained? Or I think he's got a piece of like a bar like stuck in his arm, so he can't move, and it's like bent. And he just hears all this shit going on in the distance. There's like this big gathering. They're like preparing for this big explosion, and he's going to be in it. And yeah, just the way this movie plays out was quite fun. And it's really gory towards the end. There's a lot of blood. The practical effects looked pretty good and nasty. It sets the silly tone right out of the gate with a like wet dream sequence. This guy has this dream of like a stripper, like there's like a strip tease and she gets naked. Like that's how the movie starts. It starts right in that dream sequence. So it just sets this really odd, goofy tone from the beginning. And so the main protagonist comes up with many smart ways to escape, which I liked. And you can't say he didn't try. This guy tries so much to get out. He gets a little lucky, a little too lucky in some points. Like he's like throwing things and he has to like hit something specific in a certain way and it like lands exactly where it needs to land. It's like okay, like that would take a million attempts to work. Like in Halloween 3 when Tom Atkins, he's like uh, tied to a chair, but he can move his arms just enough. He throws the mask across the room and it lands right on the security camera just perfectly. It's like bullshit. That would take so many tries to actually get to work. So yeah, there's some great gore, gross out moments. Yeah, some lucky moments. I already talked about that. The dude is covered in blood and shit by the end. The doofus cops were ridiculous and moronic, which is a trope I usually can't stand, but it fits the tone here, so I didn't mind it. It fits the movie. Like it doesn't work in other movies where like it's a serious film, and then like the cops show up and they're the typical dumbass cops who just can't understand what's really going on. Like they can't tell who the real bad guy is here, or they always just do something stupid. The cops show up, they get killed right away. Like I'm sick of that in horror movies, but in this movie, the doofus cops showing up, being as moronic as they were, it fit with the movie. It didn't piss me off or anything. So it worked here. It is contrived though, but whatever. It's fast paced, never gets boring. He soon starts talking to the smiley face toilet. I thought that was odd. I think there's like a smiley face sticker, and he's already like losing his mind. I mean, this movie is like in real time. He has a couple of hours to get out of there, and he's like within the first hour losing his mind already, talking to this smiley face on the wall. Like it's that like volleyball in that one movie Castaway or something. Like he's just like making a friend with the freaking smiley face. I thought that was a little forced. That's like a little too soon to be losing your mind that quickly and talking to inanimate objects and shit. And so yeah. After that, yeah, I love how it ends. So that's all I'll say about it. I won't say exactly what happens, but hilarious. My kind of ending, and it just was kind of poetic. I really liked the way this film wrapped up. So I give this movie a 4 out of 5. Really enjoyed it, and I recommend you check it out if you like these kinds of contained films. I always talk about it. It seems now in every episode I keep bringing it up, but it just keeps coming up. I like contained horror, usually, for the most part. Sometimes they don't work, but I think it all just comes down to the characters and the direction. This one, I really like this guy. He was smart, and I like how fast it was and the practical effects. I'm a big gore guy. I like gore effects, and this has some of that. So yeah, check out Holy Shit. Now the next movie is Family Dinner. And this was a good movie too. This isn't as good as Holy Shit, but still pretty good. And let me find it here because I don't have these in order here or anything. I have to like scroll up my list. I have all my movies ranked ahead of time, so I gotta. All right, I found it. All right, so this guy's wide release in April, so it's been out for over 5 months now, right? Or 4 months. So this is a German slow burn mystery drama that turns into like a cannibal horror film in the climax. So it kind of takes a while to get to the horror. So just know that going in. It is a bit of a slow burn. It's kind of predictable where it's all leading at a point in the second act. Yeah, let me reread this. Sorry. It's predictable where it's leading at a point in the second act. So in the second act, I saw where it was going. So yeah, that was a bit of a letdown. But the tension I thought was great, and the performances were spot on. The ant is kind of frightening in this movie, and the cinematography and atmospheric farm setting, I thought that was good. And the film wasn't ever boring, despite its slow burn approach to the storytelling. So yeah, there's nasty animal gore. So if you don't like seeing animals dead on screen, this has a little bit of that going in it. And like a bunny gets ripped apart in this. And it looked really realistic. They probably actually killed a real animal. It looks like it. They gutted it and cooked it. So that was pretty nasty. There's a dream sequence that in the end seems like it was a premonition. So that's kind of creepy. Why do people in horror movies never stop, drop, and roll when they're on fire? It's a trope in movies that kind of irritates me because we're all taught at such a young age when you're on fire, you stop, drop, and roll. But I guess it's instinct to just panic and scream and run around when you're on fire. No one ever stops to like think like, oh, maybe I should roll around and maybe that will put the flame out, but they never do. The lead creepily watches her aunt and uncle have sex in one scene because their door is wide open, which is another movie trope. Why is it that in movies there's always people having sex with their doors wide open? Like couples with kids, they just fuck with the door wide open. It's like, shut the door. What are you doing? So yeah, the aunt's motive for eating her son was asinine, and I'm not sure how a decrease in cookbook sales led her down this path. Yeah, the aunt's like she makes cookbooks, and now she's like a fucking cannibal, and she's not doing too good. Her book sales are going down, and that's what led her down this path. Like, well, maybe if I turn into a cannibal, like I wasn't understanding the motives exactly, what made her so mentally ill and made her this crazy. But so maybe her mental illness led to her divorce, but why then wouldn't the dad have custody? Yeah, I watched this movie months ago, so that's why I have to read my notes. I can't just talk about it from memory. I have shitty memory. I don't do these recordings right after I watched the movie. So yeah, I'm probably looking too deep into this. The middle finger picture text was a dead, pun intended, giveaway and dumb on the uncle's end. I wrote. I'm not sure what that means. I forget, but whatever that means, I don't know. Yeah, there was a picture of a middle finger. I guess I called it. There was like a middle finger was supposed to tell her something, but I was like, I called what it really was. Whatever. It kind of reminds me of Hostel. Didn't they do that in Hostel? They took a picture of the guy's severed head, but you didn't realize his head in the picture was, severed. You just thought he took a selfie or something, and then later on they revealed that he was dead when that picture was taken. I think that's what they try to do here in this movie, something like that with a severed hand, and I called it. So yeah, but this movie I remember liking it, so I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was good, not great, but worth checking out. So that's all I gotta say about Family Dinner. And now let's jump into my horror ranking top 18 of 2018. So yeah, because I didn't watch all these movies again for this ranking, so it's for some of these movies it's been 6 months, a year, 2 years, maybe more since I've seen them, so I can't go into great detail about each one. So I'll just keep it as short as possible. Tell you very quickly why the movie might have made my list. Or it did make my list, but why it made my list. So let's start with Pyewacket. Pyewacket. This is a witch movie, and fantastically creepy. Lands with a punch to the gut. That's why I made my list. The ending. I really like the ending of this movie. It is quite a gut punch. Good performances. I'm not usually into witch movies that often, but this is one that would definitely make like a top 10 witch movie list for me. I really liked it. It's about a mom and her daughter, and the daughter gets mad at the mom, so she puts like a hex on her. She puts she summons something to kill her mom, and then quickly regrets it and tries to stop it. That's what the whole story's about. And then, yeah, that ending and the visuals, it's low budget, but that's not to its detriment. But it's an indie film and it's pretty good. Check it out on Tubi. That's where I saw it. A lot of these movies are either on Tubi, Prime, or Hulu, just so you know. Downrange. This one's on the list because of the gore. That's what I remember. And I like this kind of premise. It's very simple. It's just people stuck on a road. So it's kind of like a contained horror movie, but it's an open area. It's an open road, and there's a sniper that is like in the trees, but they can't see him, and they're just hiding behind their car. The gore effects in this are amazing. It is very vicious. Like when people get shot in the head, it's not a typical gunshot wound that you see in other movies. It's like explosion. There's lots of gore in this. Oh, and the ending. I think the ending really elevated this movie even more so for me. This is another one with an ending where I remember laughing my ass off at how this one wrapped up. It was quite funny. And this one has the dumb cop trope also, which didn't really bug me that much in this one. The cops show up and of course they immediately get killed because they're stupid. But yeah, if you're a gorehound, check out this one. Okay, next one. The Ritual. Very atmospheric. Uh, I think this is like a creature feature that turns into something else, which I won't spoil what exactly this is. I think you should go into this one as blind as possible, but there is some kind of big thing out there in the woods, and then some other stuff kind of gets thrown in there. But yeah, this is psychological a lot. There's a lot of like dreams, but the way they're shot, the visuals of this film are very amazing, and the characters, the acting, very good. This is from David Bruckner, who did the Open House or Ghost something House. I'm blanking on the title. It's got Rebecca Hall. Fuck, what was it? It was from 2 years ago. Night House. I think that's what it was. Something House. And then he did one of the VHS segments, and then he did that awful Hellraiser reboot. I didn't like it. But yeah, Ritual, probably my favorite Bruckner film. Annihilation. This one, I've heard a lot of people debate, is this one horror? But I think it's horrific enough. Especially when you get to the third act, and like there's big creatures in this movie that aren't normal looking. Like there's a bear, but it's not quite a bear. It's like a man bear pig. Sorry, I had to. It's like a man bear without the pig, and it's got like the skull of the man or something on it. But yeah, that bear and the sounds it makes, and like there's like an alligator scene, and it's very sci-fi. It's more of a sci-fi mystery than a horror movie, but it gets horrific towards the end, so I felt comfortable because of that shit to put it on the list. I think it's worthy to be on this list. It's very good. The visuals of this, great cast, great performances. You got Natalie Portman in it, and Jennifer Jason Leigh. So fantastic film from the director of Ex Machina and Men, which I was not a fan of. So yeah, check out Annihilation. Next one. This one I've only seen once. It's been a couple of years. Don't remember too much about it, other than it was told in like chapters. It's very long. It's 2.5 hours long, so maybe that's why it's not higher on my list because of that runtime. It is a little confusing. Some things I felt could have been trimmed, but Matt Dillon in this I thought was awesome. It gets quite dark in some scenes. There's a scene with like a family on a hunting trip, and where that goes, how that was done, and like the way certain bodies look towards the end, like what he does with the bodies in the third act. I remember that looking very creepy. Yeah, he like sets up like this gun thing. Uh, I won't say too much, but yeah, there was like something with the gun and like what he was doing with these bodies that looked very interesting and creepy. So yeah, The House that Jack Built, by Lars von Trier. Yeah, House that Jack Built, kind of a controversial film, but I really liked it. Cold Hell. This is another one that a lot of people don't consider to be horror, but how is it not? Like when you look this movie up, it doesn't even say horror on Letterboxd, but I call bullshit. I mean, this movie is about a serial killer, and the things that you see him do or hear about him doing to women, like that's like if Silence of the Lambs is a horror movie, then this is a horror movie too. Like the things that this guy is doing is quite horrific, but I love that this is a strong female lead, female protagonist who knows how to kick ass, and she's not scared of this guy. He's like after her, but she like kicks his ass at one point towards the end, and yeah, it's stylish, and I really enjoyed this one because of the lead character. I think this one's French, or is it German? I think it's a foreign film, but yeah, how is it not horror? It's like it's action horror, and the the lead in this is what really carried the film for me. Also, like that was the best part of the movie. It's just having that kind of character in the lead role was refreshing. I liked, her. And so next one is a silly movie, Monster Party. I don't think I've reviewed this one. Um, but yeah, I got this one on Blu-ray, and it's a gory, silly ass film. It's like a movie about killers who have like AA meetings, but instead of being addicted to alcohol, they're addicted to killing, and they're trying to stop killing. So they have these meetings where they talk about how long it's been since their last murder, and it's dark comedy, and you got Lance Reddick in it, rest in peace, as like the main guy in charge of this group, and then one of them just can't help he can't suppress his urge to kill anymore, so he starts killing these people that are working as like the waiters at this fancy house, and they're there to like rob them, and they find that out. So yeah, it's goofy, it's very gory. Check it out. There is a what the fuck moment towards the end. It gets really ridiculous, but not too ridiculous. Victor Crowley, here's another one. Gory, silly, over the top, fun. My kind of movie. It's one of my favorite franchises. This has a pretty big body count, lots of gore. The effects aren't that great in some of the kills because this one had the lowest budget of the four films, and you can see that when you're watching the movie, unfortunately. But the kills are still creative. It's fast paced. It has some of the best humor since the first one. The characters really stand out. Very colorful, memorable characters. Dylan. And yeah, just lots of fun. Check out this movie if you like slashers and if you're a gore hound like me. Apostle. Where are we? This is number 10. So top 10. This is a period piece cult movie set on like this island, I think. There's like community that's being, it's newly built. They're trying to start anew at this location, getting away from the big city, and it goes into some weird directions. And I thought it was a little confusing on first watch, but then on second watch, it made a little bit more sense what was happening. I didn't understand the ending the first time, and some people might have that same issue, like what the hell exactly is happening to this person towards the end. But now it makes more sense on rewatch. This is one that you probably need to watch more than once to fully understand. But this one has great visuals, cinematography. The director of this, I really like his work. He does some action movies. I think this is the one by Gareth Evans or Gareth something. The guy who did the Raid action movies. I think that I'm going off of memories. I could be wrong, but my memory tells me that's who directed this. So yeah, great director, and the lead guy in this kicks ass. A lot of good performances in this. You got the actress from The Black Coat's Daughter. So yeah, really good looking, very well acted movie, and a little different, a little confusing, but it's not to its detriment or anything. All right, so Tragedy Girls. What do I remember about this one? Who directed this? This is the director of Patchwork, I believe, and this is another comedy horror movie. It's got the new Ghostface from Scream 5. Spoiler. Um, and it's about two psycho girls who are trying to get famous, I believe. They have like this website, or it's like social media. So this movie's like a commentary on today's youth, and everyone's so desperately trying to get famous and will do anything to get famous. And but I think they're trying to like make themselves the victims, kind of like a Ghostface killer. They always try to like make it look like someone else is doing it and they're the victims. I think that's what they're doing. They're like killing people, but then they like the movie opens up with them like kidnapping a serial killer, and then they go on a killing spree. And I think they're gonna like pin it on this guy or something like that. But it has some good gore from what I remember, and some people die that I didn't expect were actually gonna die, and yeah, it was just a horror comedy that was kind of funny, and I really enjoyed it. And I gave it an 8 out of 10. All these movies, I believe, since, yeah, all these movies are 8 out of 10 and higher from 18 on up. So, yeah, these are all great movies that I strongly recommend. Terrified. I've seen this one a couple of times. This is another one that's a little confusing, but doesn't matter because of the creepiness of this film. And it's a little unique. And there is one scene in particular where I remember when it happened, it like actually like made me like shift in my seat. Like I had to like I like kind of jumped out of my seat a little bit and got like goosebumps, and I actually like had an out loud reaction. I was like, "What the fuck is that?" Like there was something like in the background, and then it was like coming closer to the camera, and it just looked so fucking creepy. And that's the best word to describe this movie. It's got some creepy ass imagery in it. The ghosts that they see, the opening of this movie, like that was another jaw dropping thing. Like holy shit, like that was a good opening. Um, I didn't like this movie as much on rewatch. I remember liking it more the first time, but still a great movie. It's just I had it a little higher on first watch and went down just slightly on a rewatch. But yeah, just really creepy. That kid at the table eating the cereal, or like there's like a bowl of cereal in front of him. There's like there's just this dead kid just sitting perfectly still, and you're just waiting for him to move at any moment. Oh man, that is just scary shit. So Terrified, check it out. Dead Shack. This is a zombie movie, comedy film. Also, it's a horror comedy zombie film, but it's not like other zombie movies where it's like the whole world has zombie. It's like this one person has like a zombie in their house tied up, and then it just gets loose, and there's like a family, and the kid brings his friends along with him. They're going to this like cabin or whatever, and it's like a house near the house with the zombie, and it gets pretty violent, and it's hilarious. I love the dad in this movie. I thought he was hysterical. And yeah, it's a movie centered around teenagers, young teens, like a bunch of like 13, 14-year-old kids. Um, but yeah, it worked for me. I just loved the characters, loved the humor, and it was a zombie movie that actually worked for me because it's humorous. I like when it comes to zombie movies. This is what I look for: is something a little different, but humorous and not too seriously. Because the serious zombie movies, they hardly ever work for me. Zombies aren't scary to me. They never will be. So when I watch a zombie movie, I know it's not going to scare me. So I want it to entertain me. So that's why I tend to go to the silly ones like Dead Shack. And so yeah, this is if you like silly zombie movies and gory ones, this is one to check out. Monsters. This is another one like Terrified that when I rewatched it, it went down slightly. Um, but I think the reason why I loved it so much the first time was because of the ending. That was like a fist pump ending. A very awesome, like fuck yeah, like that was just a cherry on top. But what really bugged me about this movie is it's a movie that sets up these characters for you to hate. And so you're just waiting and waiting for them to finally get it. And there's quite a bit of blood in this movie. And there's one sequence on a bus that was pretty cool, kind of like the new Texas Chainsaw film, kind of reminded me of that, but nowhere near as graphic. Um, but you know, there was a lot of blood in this film and some gore here and there. But then when you get to the kills of these bullies, because this is a movie about bullies, and these kids are so fucking awful, and then you're waiting for them to get killed, and they do, but it's all cutaway. There's like you don't see shit. You don't even see like what happened to them afterwards. Like you just see like blood start to pool underneath the door. You know, because you're from the other character's perspective, he's seeing the blood come from under the door. He's like, oh, you know, I can hear them getting killed on the other side. And it's like, but I want to see that because those people are so despicable. I want to see it. So that just really bummed me out. So that's the only thing. Like, if they actually show these bullies getting killed in gruesome ways, getting their throats ripped out or something by this ghoul, I don't know what exactly it is. It's like a vampire because the sun hurts it and it has kind of like vampire teeth, but it's a different kind of vampire. Um, I don't know. They never call them vampires in the movie, but I would say because of the whole sun thing, I think this movie would qualify as a vampire flick. But they're just called monsters in the movie, so that's why you know the movie's called Monsters. But they're like vampires. Um, but yeah, just if they would have killed the bullies on screen, it would have went up definitely because yeah, it's a very well shot movie. I like it. You know, the visual cinematography very well made, and some very cool moments here and there. And that ending, fist pump ending, awesome ending, but should have shown more of the violence on screen. That's the only thing wrong with it. Next up, Terrifier. This is another gory slasher movie, kind of like a throwback. You know, it's very 80s looking, like it looks very low budget, it's kind of gritty. Um, and you know, it's all practical effects and very gruesome. It's known for having one of the most shocking kills in recent memory with the hacksaw. And yeah, it's mean spirited as fuck. Art the Clown is one of the newest, scariest villains in horror. And I love this movie now more and more each time I watch it. For some reason, I did not like it the first time I watched it. At the time, I wasn't used to low budget films like this because this movie does look quite low budget. The acting, I'll admit, isn't the best. It's not terrible. I've seen some pretty fucking terrible acting at this, but at the time, I wasn't quite used to this kind of film, low budget films, when I reviewed it initially in 2018. I wasn't used to this kind of stuff. But now I have so much more that I've seen that I can compare it to, and this is way better. This is a good film. Art the Clown's amazing in this. The gore, love it. So yeah, Terrifier, for fans of slashers, yeah, definitely check it out. Summer of '84. Love this movie. I did review this one. This is like a mystery set in the '80s, 1984, and it's centered around kids. Kind of feels like you're watching it. You know, it's just a bunch of kids in the neighborhood, and you know, riding their bikes and going into tree houses, looking at nudie mags, and but you know, so it's probably you know it's a nostalgic film. You know, it got all this '80s stuff in it, music. I think they're playing Rubik's cubes and shit. It's you know it's a very '80s movie, and but that's not why I love it. That's just one reason. But you know I love the characters, the performances, and the ending. This is another one with a fantastic ending. I might have even talked about it in that one video I made about horror movie endings. And because I love the killer in this movie and the speech that they give at the end to one of the characters, what they say, haunting, very awesome. Uh, yeah, just what a great way to end it. Doesn't need a sequel. It's perfect as it is. Does not need one. So yeah, fantastic film. And it's one of those mysteries that it's not even really a mystery. Like they tell you who the killer is right away, but they still treat it like a mystery. So it's kind of odd. Maybe that won't work for some people if you're wanting like some kind of big surprise, like oh my god, it was actually this person, because the whole movie, the whole time, they're like it's this person, it's this person, it has to be them, and so you as the viewer might be like trying to think ahead and try to like outsmart the film, like oh no, they're gonna try to pull the rug out, so it's actually gonna be this person. No, it's the person they're saying the entire time. So I don't feel like that's too much of a spoiler to give that away, but it's 5 years old now. I feel like most people have seen this. But yeah, they tell you who the killer is right away. And I mean, it couldn't be more obvious. But because you think it's a mystery, you're like trying to think, well, who else could it actually be? But no, it's pretty straightforward. It's exactly who they say it is from the beginning. So that might anger some people, but it worked for me. I didn't care because the characters are that great and the ending is that strong. And yeah, so this isn't a gory one though, so don't expect that. It's pretty tame, but kids do die. This is about kids, and kids are getting killed and going missing. And so yeah, it's not one of those safe horror movies where the kids never die. Not in this movie's case. So yeah, Summer '84, fantastic film. Incident in the Ghostland. This is from the director of what's it called? Martyrs. Um, and this one is pretty brutal, just like Martyrs. Not on that level, because I don't think anything will ever be more fucking brutal than that. But yeah, this one you can tell is from that guy. And this one, I loved the atmosphere and the eeriness of these villains in it. It's two people. One of them is like a guy dressed as a girl, and the other one's like this big dummy who thinks he's like a child at heart, and he plays with his victims and makes them like dolls. He treats them like dolls, like these big life-size dolls, and the way he tortures them. There's some torture in this, not too much, but yeah. And this is one of those movies that has like a twist in the middle as opposed to the end, and I called that twist pretty early on, so that would be the one flaw with the film was that I called it in the first 10-15 minutes. I'm like, all right, I think this is where it's going. Just because of certain things they establish about one of these characters, certain things they say, I'm like, all right, that's coming back later. And then, yeah, so I was able to predict it, but I've heard a lot of people were surprised by that twist in the middle. But yeah, just very creepy, atmospheric, love it. It's very brutal film. So yeah, Incident in Ghostland, or in some places it's just called Ghostland. And this is a hard movie to get. I cannot find like a copy of this film like on Amazon. Like I don't know, like there's no release of it that I can find, which is a shame. I would love to own this, but it's on Netflix. A Quiet Place Part One. We are officially at 10 out of 10. These next two movies, 10 out of 10. I love these films. And what I love so much about this one, I reviewed it, so you can check out all my thoughts there. But the tension and the family in this, I love the family, the characters, and just the way they're written and acted. It's just it's phenomenal. The tension, the look of the aliens. Some people complain about the CG, but they don't show them too much, which is good. But yeah, just I love the premise. Just can't make a single fucking noise. And a lot of people complain about the baby thing. It's just a nitpick I have. Like, yeah, I see those people's arguments. Like, if you're living in this world where you can't make noise, otherwise you die by these creatures, why would you want to bring a baby into the world that's going to be screaming and crying all the time and you can't control it? I could see that point, but it's like I understand why the characters would want another baby though, because of what happens towards the beginning. The way it's written, it makes sense why they're doing this, and they come up with a plan to suppress the baby's cry so that the creatures won't hear it. So I can look past the whole why are they having a baby thing. Like it doesn't bother me that much. But yeah, just great characters, amazing suspense, intention, just beginning to end. Very well directed by the lead actor in the movie, John Krasinski. Directed this one. I think he directed the second one also, but I don't think he's coming back for part 3, which is coming out next year, supposedly. Quiet Place Day 1. So yeah, Quiet Place, 10 out of 10, awesome. I prefer it over part 2, definitely. And Hereditary, you all knew this. You probably, if you're familiar with my channel at all, and you've seen my 1 hour review of this movie, then you know that this was going to be my number one. I think this is a fucking modern day masterpiece, one of the best film like of this generation, since the best film of this century. It's the best. The direction, the score, the performances. Oh my gosh, Oscar-worthy performances. Toni Collette, the killing kids in this one. It's not safe at all. Where it goes in the third act, the way it's shot, the creepiness of it. It's just dread, a sense of dread from beginning to end. And it's maybe a little confusing. Some scenes, like, what the hell does that mean? Like the light that they see going around. But I've come up with my own interpretation of like every scene in this movie. And this is a movie that the more you watch it, you just pick up on little things each time. Like, oh, I didn't notice that before, or oh, now I get that, and I didn't notice this tip over on its own. Like, it's just one of those movies where you're just rewarded with each rewatch. Like, you see something else. And so yeah, I just love it. Absolutely adore this movie. Number one, easily, without a doubt. Hereditary, masterpiece. So yeah. That's all I gotta say. Oh, I guess before I go, let me just shout out. I won't talk about these movies. I've talked long enough. I'm just gonna shout out these titles that could have made my list that I highly recommend, and maybe list a few turds at the very end. So write down these titles once I find the list. Sorry. Here it is. Okay. Hellfest. I liked it. Not a lot of people did, but whatever. I liked Hellfest. The Nightingale, Cargo, Overlord, The Clove Hitch Killer, Unsane, which was shot on an iPhone. The whole movie was shot on an iPhone, I heard. That's pretty interesting. And then Halloween 2018. I like that movie less and less every time I watch it, so I'll probably stop watching it for a while now. But that was like my top 2 of 2018 when I made my last video. But like I said, I probably saw like maybe 8 movies from that year. So yeah, I've seen a lot more since. Revenge. Rape Revenge movie. Pretty stylish. Awesome soundtrack. Strangers Pray at Night. I reviewed that movie on this channel. Leprechaun Returns. Also reviewed that one. Mom and Dad. Marrowbone. May the Devil Take You, Part 1. And You Might Be the Killer. I like that one. Puppet Master: The Littlest Reich. Easily the best Puppet Master in that shitty franchise. Getting Schooled. Not Getting Schooled. Boarding School. Boarding School. Not Getting Schooled. Bloodfest. The Night Eats the World. The Domestics. Insidious: The Last Key. And The Endless, which is the sequel to Resolution, which was on my other list. I rewatched Mandy a few months ago. I did not like this movie, like, at all, the first time I saw it. But when I rewatched it, because I knew what to expect, I actually really dug like the second half of this movie. It's just the first half I really do not like. But that's a very divided movie. Suspiria, the remake, I reviewed it. It's okay. It's just way too long. All right, so The Meg. Bird Box, I like that one. All right, let's get into some shit. All right, Slender Man. Terrible movie. Haven't seen it since the theater. Never will rewatch it. It's garbage. Sharknado. I hate all of them. So you're probably not surprised. Sharknado 6. It's About Time. Fuck that movie. Malevolence 3. I really liked Malevolence 1 and 2, but 3 was just so like made for TV and generic. It was awful. Same writer and director. I couldn't believe it. It was horrible. Tales from the Hood 2. I really liked part 1. I just saw part 1 for the first time within the last year. I really dug it. But fuck, was part 2 just like so in your face, heavy-handed, just awful. Like the segments sucked. It pissed me off. I really hated this movie. But I never hated any movie from this year more than Death House. Fuck Death House. This was like a movie that was like pimped for years, like years in the making. So all the horror legends coming together for this big pile of shit, incoherent mess that made no fucking sense whatsoever. All like shot on a green screen. It looks terrible. The script is terrible. What they do with these actors that you're familiar with and love is terrible. Like, oh look, Felissa Rose. Oh, she's gone. Like, okay, like they had her on set for 10 seconds, shot her in the background. Like, all right, she's like, they treat people like her like extras. Like, that's what I remember. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember. Like, you just see faces in the background, like, oh my god, Felissa Rose. Oh, this person. Oh, and then they're gone. And like, just the script is easily the worst part. The effects, second. Like, I don't know which is worse actually. The script of this movie, which made no sense, or the amount of like CGI and green screen that's in it. That just looked horrible. And like there's a scene where they're like going down an elevator shaft and they're like holding on to the cable bare hands, like sliding down the cable. Not only are they doing that, but they're doing it at like 300 miles an hour. Like they're just flying down the cable. There's no logic to the film whatsoever. It's like set in the real world, I think, but it can't, not with shit like that happening. And they're like shooting people on each floor as they're going down, as if they even could see them and be able to line up a shot with as fast as they're going. There's no way. Like, this movie is so dumb. Oh, that's all I'll say. I don't want to turn this into an angry, like, some people like when I rant, but I don't like ranting. It's just I don't like to shit on films because I know that it's difficult to make these movies. So, but fuck, like, why would you even release this movie? Like, this movie should never have been released. I don't see how anyone watched the final product, the final cut of Death House, and it was like, yeah, that's releasable. The horror fans will love it. They'll eat it up because this person's in it, this person's in it. They'll love it just because of that, and we'll make money. No, I don't think this movie made money, and I hope it didn't. I hope it did not make money. It doesn't deserve it. I can't believe anyone actually agreed to be in it. Like, sorry. Yeah, I'm done. So, yeah, that's all I'll say for now. Yeah, the next video will be my top 19 of 2019, and then I'll probably end it with a top 20 of 2020. For some reason, I skipped that year. I did a top 20 or whatever of 2021. I did a top 10 of 2022. I did a 19 before, like I did an 18. You know, I started my channel in 18, so I did 18, I did 19, I did 21 and 22, but for some reason I skipped 2020. So I have to make up for that. So yeah, my top 19 will be the next episode, and then my top 20 will be the next episode after that. So with that being said, what are your thoughts on these movies? If you're even still watching, I doubt anyone is at this point. At 47 minutes. I don't think anyone actually like listens to these videos, especially at this point. They're gone. You know, they just kind of like skim through it. Like, all right, what's his number one? I'm just going to drag it to the end and see what his number one is. And if I agree, maybe I'll go back and listen to the rest. I don't know. That's just how I think. I think people are just going to where they want, you know, that's what they do. Just like, all right, I just want to listen to that part. Like, what's his list? They're not even listening. They're just like dragging the mouse. But if you are listening, what are your thoughts on these movies? Holy Shit and Family Dinner, if you've seen them. If you haven't, I recommend them. And what are your thoughts on my list? My top 20, yeah, my top 2018. I meant to say 18 of 2018. So yeah, but what's your list? Also, you know, do you have a list? Have you seen enough to make a list? If you haven't, doesn't matter. Just tell me what your number one is or your top five. I don't care. Just tell me. But yeah, so yeah, that's the end. I'll see you in the next video. Adios.